Hi, everybody. My name is Darcy Clarke. I'm the CEO at Volt. Hopefully, you folks have seen our tiny little table there with a bunch of stickers and stolen some stickers from there. I am here today to talk about registries. I'm very interested in registries, obviously, and hopefully you folks are as well. Can I get everybody, because it's late in the afternoon, to quickly stand up, though? Just for 1 second, if you can. And we're going to do a big stretch, hands in the air. And we're going to take a big, deep breath in. Hold it. Hold it. And exhale. Okay, you can sit down. So you'll listen to me for about the next half hour. You'll start nodding off at like 15 minutes. But then, we're giving away Lego kits, so hopefully you'll listen to me this entire time. I want to quickly say thank you to the organizers of this conference. I remember going to JSConf, over a decade ago, and it's an incredible conference. The people here are what makes it, so I really appreciate all the friendly faces I'm seeing. Essentially, people are what we care about. People are who makes software. And so I did want to quickly make an acknowledgement, because I don't think I saw one yet. This past year, we actually lost somebody who actually met at this conference. Michael Rogers, I know a number of you in this room knew him. We lost him tragically to cancer. And if you don't know, I bet you do use his software even today. Michael was foundational to Node.js and to open source more broadly. He was one super kind person, and even as recently as last week, his software is still getting 100 million downloads on NPM, which is incredible. And obviously, you probably know some of his packages. Of course, you may or may not know this, but actually he was the first committer to the NPM registry. So he had the first 10 commits working closely with Isaac. And of course, Isaac eventually took off and made NPM Inc. what it is. But essentially, his software, his contributions are laid the foundation for the work that we do today. And it's pretty incredible. If you happen to be in San Francisco area, which I think a couple of you are, next month there's actually going to be an event which I encourage you folks to go to. There's also a GoFundMe that was put together. If you knew Michael and you're so inclined and can, you can contribute to it. Some amazing people are actually speaking at the event. Guillermo Rauch, Ryan Dahl, just a few names. So why did I want to talk about registries today? Why did I want to talk about the NPM registry? For me, registries are very special. They're like the town squares. Together, we publish and share artifacts. We collaborate and create internal tooling. We create essentially the building blocks and modules that other folks are using and abusing in some cases every day. And having a centralized place comes with it a lot of benefits for discovery, distribution, and of course, collaboration. If you know my team, they're here somewhere, Luke's right there. We also happen to have a legacy here. Half of us, at least, were a part of the NPM team. We're a part of the NPM acquisition in 2020. And so we care deeply about the CLI and registries in general. So when I say a registry, you probably think about the registry, right? Of course, the registry tends to be NPM. This is just the sort of canonical, name that you think of. And there's good reason for that. We are crushing it. The JavaScript ecosystem took off and hasn't looked back, right? So I was a PHP developer back in the day. I'm sure some of you still are or used to be. We left PHP and everybody else in their dust. NPM continues to be the largest package registry in the world, as far as we know, with roughly 3.7 million packages and over 370 billion monthly downloads, the last I checked. So a bit of a history For some of the folks that don't know, in terms of ships, obviously in 2010, we got the first release of the CLI and the package registry. And then, quickly make this bigger for myself. Then we got some cool features, organizations, private packages, search. NPM Inc. was founded in 2014. We got some interesting features around 2017, 2018. NPM actually acquired a company called NSP, or the Node Security Project. Technically, it was Lyft Security. And with it came the NPM audit command and the NPM advisory DB. Of course, in 2020, I was a part of this acquisition. GitHub bought NPM, and since then has done a few things, but has also killed a number of things as well. So where are we today with NPM? This is kind of hard to see, and I'm not sure if other folks have noticed this a lot in their feeds lately. It's definitely been popping up a lot in my feed. I like to call this like the scary GitHub banner. I'm not sure if you've seen this. It's technically the retirement banner that GitHub uses for their blog posts. And since 2018, a year after Microsoft acquired GitHub, they started using this in their changelog to essentially tell the community when they were changing features or deprecating features. And you'll notice in the years since, the number of blog posts have increased. The number of things that are being retired have increased. Of course, this is probably in line also with the amount of development that's happening as well. And so I'm seeing more and more of the scary banner. This year is, unfortunately, the largest in terms of the retirement blog posts. And most notably, we still have a quarter left. So I think this number is only gonna grow. So it's essentially more than doubled this year. So there's something interesting going on, whether it's just a focus on AI, or maybe there's just, the platform is getting way too big. As a former GitHub employee, I'm interested to know what's happening. The thing that caught my eye, though, the most important, most recently in February, GitHub actually announced changes to the NPM Registry's replication API. How many people know what that is? Oh, geez. How many people know that you can mirror NPM? Okay, so how many people actually do that? So the people that actually do it, they know exactly what happened earlier this year, and they probably have been dealing with it ever since. It is a tough cookie. Maintaining this service has always been tough. I will show you very shortly here, the API and why this is likely, the changes were likely necessary. But essentially, the replication feed is changing forever, and these changes, I think, imply some other things about where we're going. So if you don't know, this is a quick diagram, and I apologize for the contrast ratio. There are some arrows pointing at other things. And there's a nice little couch there, because this used to be a CouchDB service. I think the team has been moving to Postgres, and that's why some of these changes have been made. But essentially, if you're mirroring the NPM registry, which means you want to get a copy of everything, which is a beautiful feature that was introduced initially. And again, I think Michael was a big reason why. If you want to essentially get a copy of all the public packages, you can essentially set up a registry follower, a service yourself that's going to listen for changes in CouchDB and essentially copy to whatever shape you want that information. And so here on the left-hand side is the replicate endpoint, and I have a follower over there, a hypothetical follower that's essentially listening to the changes. So what essentially changed here at a high level? Well, we got to do a lot more, essentially. So this change basically means that instead of getting everything I need from that change feed, from essentially setting up a registry follower and getting all the information I need when I see a change come through, your follower now needs to reach back out into NPM and make follow-up requests for package metadata. This seems like it's not a major headache, but this is actually what package managers do today, which is really interesting because the replication feeds have traditionally been this way for you to have, blessed way of drinking from the fire hose, right? And so what's being asked of the folks that were essentially following or had set up registry followers is for you to start to be more like a package manager and basically reaching back out into the other endpoints that exist today for package information. So you end up going from, having a stream of updates that include all the information you need to a sort of mishmash of architecture that now needs to have queuing and a bunch of other things, which can get really messy. So like I said, this is actually kind of the architecture that package managers take. So if we rip off, or essentially if we look at how NPM does an installation today, I think a lot of folks would be, or how many people know what NPM does when you do NPM install? Just flat out. Yeah, Charlie knows. There's maybe Wes, T, like you definitely, yeah. We got some NPM folks here, and Roy, yeah, you don't really know. Blame him for all the bugs, by the way, and any bad node releases. So a lot of people, I think that when you run npm install, you just get everything you need up front, and that it's like almost like a fetch request, right? So you make you hit the command npm install foo, and you somehow just download everything you need. This is really not what's happening under the hood. You're essentially on the hook, or your machine is on the hook to actually do all the resolution, right? It's essentially the thing that, or your machine is the thing that is actually going to do all the work to actually resolve your dependency graph. And what that looks like is, NPM is the brain, and the registry today is really this kind of like dumb husk of a piece of infrastructure. So as you can see here, in this very rudimentary diagram, NPM essentially is doing at task execution, it's in memory creating a graph, and it's doing caching and a bunch of other things. The registry is just hosting some ACL and like a bunch of manifests or documents and tarballs. And so it's a very flat architecture, which has pros and cons and benefits for sure, and was actually, as we've seen, being able to scale to this day to, hundreds of millions and billions of downloads. So all package managers do this, by the way. NPM, Yarn, PNPM, they all take the same strategy in which the package manager is actually the brain of the resolution process and the reification process. And like I said, this architecture has benefits, but it definitely has trade-offs as well. Essentially, everybody installing packages today has to do the same redundant work. That's like the #1 downside to this architecture. At scale, this is kind of wasteful, pretty awful. As you can imagine, as we go forward into the AI future, you can imagine even more and more agentic compute is going to spin up processes doing redundant work, which is sounds pretty bad. This also means that if something goes wrong with the resolution, you're on the hook, right? Your machine's the one that's gonna, have memory issues, or even worse, be infected, because you're the one downloading things from the internet first and foremost, as if you've never seen them before. So although it's both powerful to have very intelligent brains running and doing this resolution on our machines, it also might be not that efficient. The analogy I like to make is, what if Google had never indexed the web, right? Could you all imagine today going to Google and essentially waiting for it to go reach out into the internet and resolve the knowledge graph? That would be a pretty bad experience. And unfortunately, that's sort of what we're left with today. Of course, NPM as a registry is not the only game in town, but every registry you probably know of, and many of these names you know of, including ours now, essentially has NPM-compatible APIs, and they've taken a strategy to mimic this architecture, right? So how could we actually improve on this architecture? How could we make this better? Well, this past year, might be hard to see, but our team at Volt came up with a serverless package registry. It essentially mimics the exact same architecture you know. It's similar to Verdaccio, if anybody has used that, being open source and being able to run in CI or locally. The interesting thing about it is that you're not going to need a DevOps team to run it. You're not going to need Docker to run it. The whole idea is that in this current architecture, the model that we have is highly cacheable. NPM itself was one of the first users of Cloudflare's Workers implementation, has been on that for over a decade now, as far as I know, or roughly a decade, let's say. And so you can publish essentially this registry for yourself in Cloudflare, in Vercel, or you can be running it locally. And so we think that the opportunity here is to collaborate with the ecosystem, to work with people in open source, and allow you to essentially self-host in a registry that is compatible with NPM. Now, this also means that we can add net new features. This has been always a tough pain point, as you saw in the history. Development was always slow with NPM. It always scaled with the size of team that you had. When you can work in the open source or open, obviously there's a lot of opportunities that we get working together. We have incredible docs for this registry, by the way, right? So I think that we have the best NPM docs out there. I don't know anybody else that has great NPM docs, but because we've mapped essentially all the endpoints to mimic the NPM registry, we have hosted docs at docs.vlt.sh, and actually the portal that you see here is your personal docs that are interactive, hosted actually by our friends at Scalar. Scalar is a Postman type piece of software. So this actually is distributed with your registry. You get this nice interactive docs. Funny enough, the registry implementation we actually give you for free as well in our client. So if you actually are running our client, you don't have to be, but if you're running our package manager client, you can run Volt Serve, and you get this registry. So we got hosted docs, we've got docs that you can run locally. So what else should we think about, or how should we look at the registry ecosystem or JS package ecosystem more holistically? How should we look at it differently with a piece of software like ours or just in general? So although NPM is considered to be the largest package registry in the world, I actually think it's a small subset of the actual ecosystem. I know all of y'all probably have a package that is not indexed in NPM today. And the opportunity that I think exists is for us to do just what Google did, to go out and index essentially this ecosystem, this wider ecosystem of registries, upstream registries and packages that exist all over, to crawl this web and to understand it before end users do. So we can protect them, so we can have better performance and build better tooling around this. With that in mind, and that scope of that in mind, how essentially would this affect change actually in the package manager clients? So what you would see is that a shift. The client, in this case I'm using Volt, would get a lot dumber. It would no longer be the brains of the operation. We could put more of the resolution into the actual registry. And what you see here is if it's open source, we also give the ability to actually run this registry locally, adjacent to the package manager. So the client can be focused on task management and orchestration, and the actual server infrastructure and architecture can be focused on actually resolving the dependency graph. So when we do this, what kind of potential do we unlock? And our team has been working really hard at this for quite a while. And I used to dream about dependency graphs. It's a problem I still have today, unfortunately. And when I look at these things, it's sort of, this was my second half of my career I got into package management. First half of my career was front-end development. And what this really reminds me of is the DOM. And so I did something that's probably sacrilegious. I said, hey, I would love like developer tools for package management. I would love the Chrome developer tools. I'm jealous of what front-end developers, JavaScript developers get in terms of how they develop with front-end code. And so we stole from CSS. And how many people still write CSS? Oh, yes, okay, cool. I guess I'm in a room full of jQuery folks, right? Like, I'm kidding, but CSS are, I don't know where Tailwind folks are, is what I'm saying. DSS essentially is a lifted version of CSS, or the syntax is basically CSS. This was inspired by the relationship that CSS has to the DOM, and the reflection that I was seeing within dependency graphs was how do we essentially query for and make sort of very expressive observability tools that can help you do introspection against complex dependency graphs. So DSS essentially is just like CSS. A lot of the nomenclature, a lot of the grammars you'll see here is just like it. And it lets you essentially do some very interesting things and consolidate what has traditionally been a ticky-tack implementation in package managers and at registries for filtering, querying, and sort of introducing flags to gate or allow packages to be installed or executed on. So we have a query command in the client, our Volt client. It can take one of these query selectors. It can also do something really interesting where we can change the view or the output that we render. So in this case, I've passed the view equal mermaid flag to the query command, and I've got back a mermaid diagram of this exact query. So really powerful stuff. We can also initialize, which is kind of beautiful, the fact that we give you a UI in the client. We can initialize a view of our dashboard and essentially what we call our Graph Explorer. So from a query of sort of doing observability of my dependency graph, I can initialize this more rich interactive experience in my browser. I don't know if I'm going to have time to do a demo, but I did want to talk, and I will give you folks maybe time after this. I'll see if I have time after this, to go into this in depth, because there's a lot here in terms of how we actually pull out metadata and insights and sort of build up the dependency graph that you get to explore. So in terms of what we're going to do next and what we're planning next and how this all comes together, we're going to build that index. So the index I showed you, we're going to index the ecosystem. We already have metadata partnerships, so beautifully enough, we have security insights from Socket. We have a partnership with Aikido as well. So we're giving our dependency graph more and more metadata that can be used in that expressive language to both install or gate or create policies around. We also want to create ecosystem-wide search and querying. What does that mean? It means a Google search across the entire ecosystem. And before you see a package, we want to. And registry policies, of course, make total sense when we're talking about keeping you safe and teams and organizations safe, and providing net new capabilities in the registry itself. And something that's been on top of mind for me, and I know a bunch of folks recently, has been release management. All capabilities that we'll be adding to the registry itself. Quickly, I got a couple minutes, so I just wanted to say, if you want to try the Volt registry, or what we call VSR, you can type Volt serve. It's going to spin up both a registry and that beautiful UI I was showing you before. You can also win some Lego kits if you share online and show us what you're doing or your project's running in the UI. And thanks. That's it for me. I have 2 minutes here, and it says I have baked in time for QA. So I might, do people have questions? And if you do or don't, I can also do the, hopefully, demo gods thing here. Questions? And I also don't know how much time I have for Q&A. Can somebody give me that? Does anybody know what the exact time is? No? Okay, I'm just going to take as much time as possible then. So who wants to see demos? Okay, great. Okay, sick. Let's see if I can. Donald? They want me out in 5?
They usually want a 10-minute buffer between your 5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes? Wow, okay. Time's up. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I have a demo project somewhere. Let's get to it. Okay, I have a demo project. I've already run Volt install. So you can run Volt install on your projects today, and you get that beautiful, or actually, you can get a beautiful output and command line interface when you run Volt. But you can also do that beautiful querying. Here's a query where I'm going to say, hey, can I find anything? So I'm using like this CSS language again, beautiful not selector, if anybody's used that. That's recent in terms of us old fogies. So let's find any project that doesn't have a license. I don't think that there's going to be any. I think they should all have licenses. So great, so that they all have licenses. Let's find React. So we can use ID selectors. Okay, there's a bunch of versions of React. That's great, but let's say we want to expect only like 4 to exist. Okay, this errors because we have this flag that says I only expect a certain amount of results. That's cool. So we essentially mimic, and here's the beautiful API docs. Again, like I said, I think these are, if you've ever tried to build something for NPM, here are the docs you need. But essentially, we have this beautiful interactive UI built, by my lovely team here that lets you really do some interesting things in terms of navigating your dependency graph just by clicking around. So you can see on the right-hand side, I actually have my dependencies. I can dive in. So I clicked on Express. That was one of the dependencies. And you can see that the selector syntax actually is updating in that address bar in the top. So you don't actually have to learn this language that we're talking about. We actually just give you, start to sort of create the breadcrumb for you to learn what this language does. We can even go in here and say, okay, it looks like Express has some security insights. Oh, look, it has, access to the environment, right? So it also has access to the network. So I can actually click on this network filter. I think this works. Or let's do the env one. Maybe it doesn't work. Let me refresh this. Make sure it's running. This is why the demo gods hate me. Okay, let's click on the network selector. Does it work? Okay, it doesn't work. Let me just type it. Great. Okay, so this network pseudo selector, it's a pseudo element, I guess you would call it in CSS terms. In the search, essentially, it was able to find all the dependencies in this project, at least, that have network access, right? And so this is kind of crazy. I can do some like really interesting sorting, filtering using this syntax. I can do that search I did before for all versions of React that are in this project's dependency graph. So you can see I have 2 versions. If I click into them, I can dive deeper, and you see that and I can actually deep link, I think, unless that just busted. Oh, maybe if it would help if I type things properly. We also have a query builder, so if you'd never want to actually write these things yourself, so like production dependencies, let's say you have, I don't know, let's do something interesting. Let's find all the packages that are outdated, right? That's a traditional thing that folks would do. If I say outdated on any level, I'm going to find any prod deps that are outdated at any level, and you can see that these are the versions that are. So I can dive into this one, and I can actually see that there are newer versions. If I zoom out here, there are newer versions of this ANSI tokenized library that I could have got. The version I actually got was 0.1.3. Does anybody have any questions about this or want to me to do anything with it in front of you? Or is don't hit a edge case, is that what you're saying? I'm definitely off script right now. No?
The package downloads are just sourced from the NPM download reported?
Correct, today, but we're actually in the midst of, essentially having our own. I mean, we can also do something interesting, like tell me a package to install. Anybody? Nobody knows what a package in the ecosystem? It's 3.
Days.
What is it?
English dash days. Express. We already got Express. He's in Express, right?
Right, so what I just did there is I just interactively installed English Days. Sorry? I see, so that was your dependency that we just installed. Wes is gaming me here. Great, so we see English Days here. Yeah, my machine is blown up. Interesting enough, we don't run post-install scripts by default as well. So if you're, that's like a, sorry? So nothing ran, I'll be honest, nothing ran. I was totally fine with running it. So we can look in, this is obviously created by Wes, so we can look at the contributors. And actually, funny enough, Wes, if you want me to click on your name, it's gonna tell me every dependency that you're, these are all the packages that you maintain that are in this project right now. So if you look at the selector that was created, it's this special adder attribute selector that we introduced. This is something that CSS doesn't have, which is it has no concept of deeply nested properties like JSON. Everything's flat in terms of the attributes that you're usually styling against. And so adder lets you essentially do as many as you want keys to deeply nest and query property, like JSON properties. And so in this case, we're looking up Wes's email to see. I'm sorry for doxing you here, Wes, but it's on every package. Yeah, it is public information. So, and it's kind of crazy. You're in 15 of these packages. True. The cool thing is, we could essentially do the not. I don't want anything from. What would be funnier is to look up how many Jordan has in here. If you're really trying to have, a competition here, I can be like, Jordan, what's your email? Oh yeah, he's 44. He's crushing you, Wes. And so there's some beautiful things that you can do with this. Obviously, the future with policies. There's something really interesting here as well. Roy, who's in the back, actually built in what is eventually going to be the ecosystem-wide search. And so we can do, on this machine, on my machine, I can do a machine-wide search, right? So right now you're seeing essentially a scope search to this project. But you can use a special pseudo selector called host. This is actually a thing that's in CSS, if you know, where you can actually scope a selector to the specific host environment. And so we can say host local and essentially do a query, let's say, for all of Jordan's packages that are across all my projects. And so this is how we are going to unlock the potential of the indexing and querying against the entire ecosystem that we index. So that's one of the special components of this. And cool as well, if you go to the dashboard, what you'll see is when you spin up this instance of our dashboard, we actually look through your system and find, you can configure this, and we actually ask you to configure this, but we can find all the projects on your machine. So you can see there's actually NPM projects, PNPM projects, and the hope is we'll be able to load the graphs of all those non-Volt projects in the future. So. We also have save queries, which is cool. It's like bookmarks, which is really cool. Yeah. I mean, you could have last year. So This is the docs. Sorry? Oh, it's a leading question. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. You're giving me some ammo here, Wes. The default registry that we spin up is auth by default. There's actually two key features of this registry. It's both a proxy registry, i.e. you can use it to consume NPM packages, and it gets cached. So once you get on the airplane, hey, you've got your Jordan loves this because he's always developing. Right? He's always on his machine. And so that feature is really incredible because you can essentially configure upstreams like NPM, and we'll essentially cache in this registry instance locally to you those packages. The other interesting feature is right alongside the proxying capability, we have a local private package registry. So if you want to be doing testing your package publishes, if you want to put this in CI and make it a part of your CI workflows, if you're a maintainer of packages or even internal package registries, you can use this. And we give you a default admin, a user and credential configured to this by default. And that's what this bearer token is for. If you want to see what the token is, it's just X's. It's not crazy. But you can obviously remove this. You can add actual end user credentials. And there's some APIs that are actually now in this registry that don't exist in NPM. And this is the opportunity that we have to innovate essentially on the package registry today. So. And yeah, so I can even show you, I think this is running right now. So if I went to go proxy, let's say, React, this is me essentially proxying the request through to the NPM registry. Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
How do you make sure that when there's another step work that you don't get proxies to the malware once the security?
Sorry, say that one more time, the first part.
In the period of time where there's been like a text advisory, but it hasn't become a security holder.
Right, so we don't have basically that querying syntax has in it the metadata. Let me pull up the docs. Our The policy implementation that we don't have yet is basically implementing the query language in the registry. So once we have the query language in the registry, the unlock there is you can specify, like we have those partnerships, metadata partnerships. You can basically specify a malware selector as your default policy to ignore, let's say, an upstream. And that would be, that selector is, it requires a fetch. And so it does have it's basically a mutable selector, meaning that's updating all the time based on when we're fetching those security insights, which is better than NPM. As you kind of know, it takes them a while to take down malware. These other security companies are obviously incentivized to, as quickly as possible, update their feeds and be the first ones to publish that. So the idea, what is this? Time's up? Okay. Yeah, we can talk about it offline, Charlie. But thank you guys so much, and we can chat in the hallway. So cheers.